It is Tuesday. Raquel did choir. Do you all know that? I didn't.
Did the choir thing.
Our lovely Key of Nothing song continues to prove that we're both very adept in the music industry in our fields.
You have to know it to break
That's right.
it, okay?
You are so right. Good job. Good job. We've spent the morning testing some new software. I say software. I don't mean that. I mean hardware, I think, because it was a camera,
Hardware.
but there was some software thing, something with a display.
Yeah.
And it was infuriating. Long story short, I thought Raquel died. I have disaster mentality with certain things. If people don't respond to me, I think that something terrible has happened. And so in my mind, she had fallen out of a window or on her face and been unable to get up for some reason.
Help, I've fallen and I can't get up.
and that is how...
I need one of those fall buttons.
Oh, what does it sound like, a fall button?
Just over there with my helmet on. Like.
Couldn't get up this time, guys. So that has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. But the patience that was exercised, I think, is as a result of me being good in my practice of daily practices. And that is what we are talking about today on our Tuesday. We're talking about the practice that we embody and act upon every day. Or I'm going to say most days, because Sundays I do nothing. I have zero rules. But Raquel is...
and I'm going to say this is the difference between us, is that you're calling it a practice. We're going to get into our differences.
Yeah, we're very different people, if you haven't already noticed. Me with disaster mentality, Raquel just goes, ha, she thought I died. Here's me like freaking out. What are your daily... Well, you're traveling right now. So you are traveling. What are your daily practices? What are the things that you do? Or do you want me to start?
You know what? I think you should start, and then we'll get into mine. But yes, I think you should start this one.
Okay, good deflection. Love it. Okay, let's talk about mine. Just over a year ago now, I started what I call a morning mindset routine. And what I decided, the origin story of this, we're all about origin stories. The movie industry is just full of origin stories. So I'm going to go with that vein. The origin story of my morning mindset was that I was realizing that my time didn't feel like my own. I felt like I was waking up and I was immediately going to my phone to see who needed me or what needed to happen, in quotes. And I was letting in external people, external thoughts that really weren't about myself. As an actor, I falsely believed that my time belonged to my agent and to my team, and that if I needed to drop everything to do something, that I would have to do that. And there is an element of truth to that. The industry works really, really quickly. But I mean, if you have kids, if you have anyone that is like so-called depending on you to get stuff done, that is a real reality. You do have to get up and do certain things. So what I realized was I needed to make enough space where 99% of the time it would be almost a guarantee that no one could interrupt me, because it would be, and for me it was because it was 5 o'clock in the morning. And the industry does not wake up unless you're on set at 5 a.m. So auditions would start at 10. So what I did was create this hour and a half routine. And over time, I just kind of, I allowed it to evolve, and I addressed it, and I kind of iterated it. And what it now is, has incorporated so many different elements of who I am and who I aspire to be. And so what for me it is I wake up, I do 10 minutes of meditation. Thanks to Beatrice King. Our episode with Bea was really useful for that. 10 minutes of meditation, 10 minutes of yoga. And I just use the Nike Training Plus app, Nike Fitness Club, Nike Training Club. and it's free.
Yeah, I love that
and
one.
so is Insight Timer.
Yeah.
I use that. It's free. And then I do, so I do that. I do meditation, yoga. I do a 5 to 10 minute vocal warm up with Carolyn Quinn, which is, she does have YouTube. She also has Raw, which is like an online community, and it's like $40-50. I don't know how much it is a month, but it's really worth it if you're a professional speaker or singer. Raw, yes.
That's ROAR. Roar. Yeah.
And then I do an exercise called priming. And long story short, I am not condoning any one thing. I do all sorts of self-development, but I actually found this from Tony Robbins. I did a Tony Robbins thing, and this was really great. It was like a manifesting kind of 10-minute thing. So I do this priming thing.
Okay.
And then I read 10 pages of a book that improves me. So that is not a fiction. It's not a fiction-based book. It is, right now I'm reading Pathways to Reconciliation, which is an incredible book. I highly recommend it. But I only do 10 pages and I refuse to let myself do more than that. So that's my kind of 60-minute. I used to do, and the reason I refuse to let myself do more than that is because when you start to get carried away, you go, oh, I'm just going to do a little bit more. It creeps into 60, 70, 80 minutes. And then I find that I stop doing it because I'm like, oh, I don't have time for that. So this morning I allowed myself to sleep in. This is about breaking this practice because I was exhausted from I was on set yesterday and the shoot was really physically taxing. And I slept for an extra half an hour. So I only got half an hour of my routine before I had to jump online. And so I chose to do the meditation, that's the non-negotiable, and yoga and voice, because I knew what I was getting up to have to do today. So I used to also have writing. I used to have a 1 page of a journal. But then I kind of started asking myself, I was like, do I really need to do that in this phase? So this season of mindset looks like that. And I do that 6 days a week. And then Sundays, I have no rules. And I eat what I want and do what I want.
Okay.
It sounds a lot, but it's only 60 minutes.
I have no rules.
Classic.
Every day. So, yes, I will say that, okay, I would say this season, and I'm actually, it's shifting right now. So why I thought this was actually an interesting concept that you brought up. You're in the middle of changing, and I'm in the middle of changing. So I would say if you had asked me this a few months ago, I had a pretty regular routine where every single morning I had water. I went for a walk for about an hour, and then I came back and I would sit down and do work because I'm a morning worker. So I know a lot of people want to do other things, but for me, that's when I think best. And my hour walk, I would also listen to either an audiobook, also something that's going to help me. It could be tactical. It could be like mindset. It could be whatever. Or a podcast. So something that I'm learning from. So whatever that looks like. And it changed what I felt like I needed in the day. I just went for, okay, this is the vibe I want. And so by doing that, I was basically knocking out 3 major things. Then I would come home and I use Notable and I would write down 3 things I'm grateful for. The top 5 things I cannot sleep until I do. These are the things that like have to get done today. And then I had an overflow list because just like, you know how my brain works, we have the rainbow bucket list because I can't get off an idea. Yeah. Like if an idea seeps into my head, I can't just let it go. And so for me, I need to put it somewhere. So I kind of have like a dumping ground of stuff that I need to do.
I'm like, we need to get this done for tomorrow. And she's like, well,
yes.
I was thinking about merch.
But I just need to put it out there. We don't need to make it happen. We don't need to like work on it.
In the rainbow bucket.
It just needs to live out in the world and outside of my brain. Yeah. So we made a rainbow bucket for that. And I kind of have my own, I don't call it a rainbow bucket, but I have essentially my own. I call it just like a dumping ground.
I much prefer a rainbow bucket to like, oh, it's my dumping ground. It's like, I just immediately think of Stig of the Dump. Like, oh, what are you doing here? Oh, just shuffling around my dumping ground.
Oh my gosh, but it's like annoying things. It's what it feels like. It's like you know, those annoying things that you're like, okay, I don't have time for that right now. Actually, you're the type of person who would probably just do it. But I'm the type of person where I'm like, I don't have the time right now. But also, if I don't do it right now, I'm going to forget about it. So it goes in the dumping ground. It's like, I need to call the government because I need to figure X out about my taxes or something, ground. You know, I'm like,
I can imagine like tiny Raquel that's just like this cartoon Raquel, like that just goes around and like kicks things like in an old junkyard. That's like, oh, what was that? Oh, that's the tax. Oh, that's the tax thing. I'm just going to put this over here for now. Over somewhere else in the dumping ground. What's this shiny thing?
Just sweep it under
Put it under a tire. You're like, oh, it's crashed. It doesn't exist anymore.
Oh my God. But I felt like Kristina, like when I was doing those things, and it wasn't a lot.
For how
and like
long?
I worked out every day and everything.
Yeah,
and whatever,
like
but my workouts. So I would do an hour walk, which was my like settling back into the world. Also, just FYI, the reason I did that is when movement, light, hydration. So having like actual sunlight in your face is so important for waking up in the morning. And I just found like I barely needed coffee.
Tell me if you've ever, have you ever used one of those Philips, those big sun globe things? Have you?
I have.
Is
So
it
my
great?
alarm clock was one.
I want one.
And what would happen is, and in the morning it would like slowly lighten up. And so in the winter time, like, you know, in Vancouver, it's the same in Amsterdam. We have these like long, like dark days. Yeah. And the mornings don't feel like mornings. It feels like you're waking up at night because it's pitch black out. Like that, to me, that made such a massive difference to wake up with that. But yeah, so that was amazing. I felt like a well-oiled machine. And then I had nonstop travel. So I was like, went to South Africa, and I was not just like in one place. I was traveling like week after week in a new place each time. Then I went back to Amsterdam for a month and a half or 2 months. And again, I was like in finals mode. So that was crazy. Then my partner came to visit me there. So that was nuts because you're going around and like, you know, sightseeing before you go. Then I went back to Canada. We had nutso bombshell times, and I was also visiting people. So that was crazy. And then when I got back, I felt like I had really lost my rhythm, and it was amazing the difference in my energy, my clarity, like everything was just so nuts. And so now I'm in South Africa, but I'm here for 2 months. We have an Airbnb, and I'm basically rehashing out how I'm going to set up my daily routines. So I just started. So this morning was my first morning of doing workouts at SAS. So that's the Stellenbosch Academy of Sport. And that's where my partner is also playing rugby. So I'm going to start going there in the mornings. And unfortunately, for 5:45, which feels very early to me.
I'm not that guy.
Yeah, I'm not that kind of a morning girl. I like mornings to think. I don't like mornings to like, but I think it'll be good. And then basically I'm in like full burnout mode. And right now I'm in, okay, let's recover from burnout. So I'm giving myself like tons of space to make decisions on the fly, but I'm scheduling in certain routines that I know help me. So exercise is one, going for forest walks are another. You know, I'm going to be going diving and having those kind of like awesome excursions, but my routines are basically making sure I get exercise. Like when I say exercise, I mean like an intense HIIT workout.
Well, it's
daily.
okay. So interesting. I just want to interject there because going back, you said movement, light, and learning, hydration. Okay.
Oh, hydration, and learning. Yeah. And I did a learning like any kind of audio.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is okay. So 2 things because. When we've talked about burnout a lot, you and I have gone through a lot in the last 12 months. I mean, as so many of us have been going through these really interesting experiences, these that have never before kind of happened, with external and internal revolutions, I think I would say. When I go into burnout, and you saw what happened. I couldn't work out. Like, I could not do high impact things. And I think this is one of the big things that I do as part of this priming exercise is I spend a minute to just listen, to not actually say, this is what I'm going to do. I listen. And I'm like, well, and you're very good at doing that kind of inherently. Whereas I am the type of person that can very easily cut my body off from my mind and my body off from my heart, and vice versa. I can
You're
be.
You're very structured.
And I'm learning to undo that
structured.
quite a lot.
Yeah.
But I have to physically go in and disrupt my neural pathways. And I am not a scientist, but I did read this somewhere, and a couple of different places I've read this and heard this and spoken to people where the path of least resistance, our bodies and our brains have these neural pathways. And they're basically like, if you've ever skied slalom, random analogy, but I used to ski slalom randomly. See, something you didn't know about me. Not very well. Let's just be very clear here. But I remember going down and being the second or third person down as opposed to the 50th. The 50th person down, you have these massive ruts, and you are basically, you have to ski differently because on that slalom, you're being taken in that route, right? So imagine all of your most ingrained habits and the ways that your neural pathways work is they want the path of least resistance. So even if something is good for you, when you start to try and do it, the first few times you do it, just like when you're on a slalom, your skis are like, no, we don't want to go there. That's not the right way, right? And you could actually be going down a faster, better way for you, but your body is telling you that's not right. Your body is telling you that it's not the right way to go. And I had this problem with smoking for the first few times that I tried to stop smoking. My body was like, no, we are in crisis. You have to have a cigarette. And obviously then Larry, we did that hour, and it's been 6 years or whatever it's been now. And that's a very different thing. But my point is, when you do that and you go through your 3 major things and you allow whatever it is to happen to you in crisis mode, if you're in burnout, you still do high impact training, but I physically cannot. Like, I will melt. And I just wonder when, all of our friends listening and having a think about what it is that you do on a daily basis, this is why it has to be so individualized and I believe so iterative, because you're traveling now. And, when you say, okay, I had to get up at 4:45, explain that to me. Like, why does this have to shift? Why do your daily practices have to shift? And how did you get by when you were in the midst of traveling and all that crisis? Like, what did you do to satisfy things, or did you just leave it?
I think I left it, and I think that's why I'm in burnout now, or part of the reason. I mean, there was also it's been a crazy time, so I think it was bound to happen, but I think it was exacerbated.
You say it however you like, darling. Well, I am so if you cannot,
is it P or is it T?
Exacerbated.
Exacerbated.
There's no T. You're mixing exacerbated with masturbated is what you're doing.
No T or no P.
It sounds interesting.
I mean, that sounds much better.
Sounds super extra. Diana Sadat would be very proud of you. I'm sure we will let her know to use a new word. Have you exacerbated today?
Exacerbated?
I am writing it down.
EXACER. But anyways,
exacerbated.
Oh, exacerbated.
Exacerbated.
Okay. I was totally thinking a different spelling. But anyways, anywho, the point is, I think between the fact that I was like dealing with tons and then also not taking care of myself, because what happened before is I was in the middle of crazy COVID. There was all this stuff going on. Like, I was in full-time school. Really, I should have hit burnout then if you think about all the things that were happening. But I wasn't. I was like super calm. I was amazing. I was like, I felt like a well-oiled machine. Like, I just was like, I had it. And now I was like, okay, I had all of these disruptions. I lost all of my routines. you know what, I don't even want to call them routines, but the self-care. I lost the self-care. And that's really what it came down to. Because for me, I will do HIIT workouts. I need training. Those for sure. Like for me, that's just, like,
okay.
It's interval training. So high impact. High impact interval training, HIIT. But yeah, so I need that. Like I need to push my body because for me, I can't access emotions.
Really?
I'm not like a super.
That's so surprising.
I'm not
an
uber emotional person. I actually had like an admissions officer be like, "So you're extremely rational, and I'm not seeing
you're
any
like,
of
what's
the
problem?"
And I was like, she's like, "We need to just like merge these," and I was like, "Oh,
you're much better than you were. At least I'm told. You're like, hey, by the way, FYI, everything is terrible right now." I will be fine, but I just need someone to know that everything is terrible. And I am learning to be emotional. There's no actual emotion in it, in that statement, but I'm like, okay, this is progress. This is the neural pathway being shifted.
It is progress. I mean, I like cried the other day and I was like, my boyfriend was there and I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm so emotional.
You're like, I'm leaking.
Okay. It's fine to cry.
My eyes. I sprung a leak. Film somewhere. I can't remember what it is. I keep thinking that I want to be a supervillain, but really I think I'm just jealous of you who actually exists as Megatron. That's just like with that maniacal laugh. Why did I never see this before? We just needed a time.
And we just needed the time.
I've given a platform to the world's next supervillain.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Come join me. But it's good. Like I'm gonna be working on I've written it all out and I'm gonna be meditating again, which
why?
I hate. I'm just gonna be honest. I hate meditating. But I'm gonna do it again. I don't know. I find like a lot of people do it. Okay, I like meditation in a yoga class. You know, at the end when sometimes classes will give you time. I think for me, a lot of it is like I need to get a lot of energy out physically. And a lot of people time it in the morning, first thing. And for me, I'm like, I'm jacked up. Like I've got energy and I need to like expel it before I can sit there and just meditate.
You know,
like
when we talk about this in terms of how you know, all of us how you out there are going to be constructing whatever it is that works for you in terms of your daily practice, know what time of day works really well for you. Because some people, it's like they can't do that until their kids go to bed. So it needs to be a 60-minute end of day or a 40-minute or a 20-minute end of day, like 3 minutes of a thing. And I love that you brought that up because I would feel the same way when with meditation, I felt that it was not productive if I hadn't satisfied other things. And so building that, you know, to reference Bake Daddy, putting all the ingredients in to bake the best daily practice cake is so important, and everyone's cake is totally different. So for me, at a certain phase, I was like, I have to write it out. If it's not written out, my brain goes into overdrive. For you, if you don't run it out, your brain goes into overdrive. And so I think that we spend a lot of time looking at these standalone pillars and saying, everyone does this, so I should do it, instead of this is how much I should do this element in amongst these other elements. And that's why I think that's a good analogy, the cake analogy of like, what are the ingredients and how much do you need of each for you to make your best daily practice cake?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what you're saying about the seasons is so true. Like just doing something because it worked for you previously does not mean it's going to work for you now. So you need to reassess and say, okay, which of these are working for me? Which of them are time wasters at this point? Like, and it may only be a month or two, or maybe like something for me, where it's external, I'm traveling, so certain things I don't have access to, or it's harder to do. We have one car, so if you have kids, like I can only imagine you have to,
or if you're working,
life around
emergency, like essential workers, shift workers. How do you? Shift is hard.
Oh my gosh,
when you're in a routine,
so
and how many times I've worked in hospitality and been like, I need an hour to wind down before I go to sleep, even though it's.
Yeah.
And it's like
I remember
3 in the
that.
morning.
I was like, I would be like buzzing. I was like, I could do a marathon. And then, but when you actually do lay your head down, you just
one of the things that I just wrote down as we were talking is one thing that is free, that is available to everyone, is space. And that is something that I feel is like the ultimate element that you have to have. Like, you have to have an oven for the cake to go into, unless it's one of those weird, like, so
explain
when
space.
You were talking, you were like,
I
need to do this and I need to do that, and I don't like doing the meditation, and when this disruption happens, it's a problem. If you create in your daily practice, for like, no matter what, you have like 5 minutes or 7 minutes that is empty once a season, and maybe this isn't the right answer for you. Maybe it's like an hour, or going for a walk in the forest where you have no agenda. That, I think, is really important for you to know when to iterate. Because when you were like, we're in phases, I was thinking to myself, like, what do? I do this thing where I'm like, I'm doing this. And then, like my dad used to say, and I think he said it to you as well, he might have said it on our podcast. There was someone that he spoke to, and they were like, well, I've been doing this job for 20 years. I should get this promotion to this other job. And Dad was like, are you doing that? Are you qualified for that job? Or have you just been doing the same job for 20 years? So you're qualified to do your exact job and nothing else. And that was such a massive light bulb for me, because I was like, I've been writing a page a day and not taking a minute to step back and go, is this serving me? Is this still serving?
What's funny about you saying that is I've been quoting your dad a lot recently, but for me, the one that I know, it's so funny. But the thing that really stuck with me when we were talking to him was about how he had trained his body when he went into the special training, so the special forces training. And he was saying how he really, really trained his body so that he was better able to handle the mental side of it. So when they're pushing you mentally, if your body is already, because they're going to push you physically as hard as they can, so that you're already worn down. And I think a lot of times life does that. And honestly, that's what stress does. So stress attacks your body and not just your mind, right? So it's really important, as long as you can keep that going, you're going to have a better ability to process all of the mental and emotional things that are going on. And I think that's why I need to do HIIT training, and I need to do yoga. And I also do, really calming walks by myself in the middle of nowhere, like in a forest. And, because it's nourishing that physical side. And then on the other side of that, I have more of a capability to deal with the mental and emotional side. When I had this conversation,
I thought I was exactly the same until I went into, you remember a little while ago when I was in like full-on crisis mode, and I was in financial crisis mode. And I had never been in that situation to that capacity before. Like babes out there, we talk about being brave and living full and failing brilliantly. And my goodness, did I fail brilliantly, just from burying my head in the sand in so many ways. And thank goodness for Bombshell Brunches, for thankfully for the work that I do in career coaching, because I basically took my own things and elements, and I put them back onto myself. And I started with my resume, and I did my resume builder, and I did all this stuff. But while that was happening, I was in full on crisis, and I'm a pretty fit person, and it went to shit. And I just was like, actually, and someone said to me, it was actually one of my best friends, Ryan, who, when I said, I was like, I think I need to go and like, I need to work out. I have to like get this out of my body. And he was like, no, you are so full of cortisol at this point that you do not want to ask your body to do high impact training on top of all of the cortisol because you are not draining it. So you need to sleep, you need to do yoga, you need to walk, you need to do those things. So I'm going to encourage you to see where you're at, like actually take stock of, okay, where am I at? If I have kids, what is my stress level? What is the season that I'm in right now? And what do I really, and create that space on a daily basis, even if it's 5 minutes of space where for 1 minute you're like, hello, heart. I do this with my heart. I'm like, how are we? How are you doing? I'm just listening. And sometimes my heart feels like it beats stronger, and sometimes it feels like it's less. But I do that because I know that I can just tell, I can be rude to my own heart and to my own body and be like, no, we're doing this. We are doing, my mind is just super bossy. And so listening and creating that, what actually feels good. And especially for, if you are overweight in your mind, and you feel like you're overweight and you feel like you want to lose weight, it can be so daunting to start down that road. But I also narrated a book called Unapologetic Eating, which I highly, highly recommend. I think the audiobook's coming out soon. It changed how I thought about so many things, well beyond body image, really right down to your sense of self-worth. And it was, I got so much out of that book. But I would recommend really taking stock and saying, okay, do I do 5 minutes of this Nike Training Club app every day? They've got a 7-minute, like I do an 8-minute yoga refresh instead of the 20 minutes. The 20 is a luxury, but I'm not making it a have to have at the moment because I don't have the time.
And to be clear, for me, I've been insanely into fitness my whole life. I was literally raised like, I wouldn't hang out with friends on the weekend. We would do downhill extreme mountain biking. Like that was the life that I was raised with. So for me, that's something that works really well for me. And I do take those moments. Like I said, I do daily walks. I do daily calm things. So it's not like I'm running from it and just going into workout mode. And for me, HIIT training, for a lot of people, I think it does raise stress because it's like yelling and bells and this and that. For me, it's such a place of comfort because I've done it for so many years that I'm able to actually shut off my brain and I just go calm. I can, and I love it when
I'm not in crisis as well. That's exactly how. I mean, I do the grind with Katie, and Katie is just like skipping up the grind, and I'm like, like Gollum trying to get to Precious.
But I think my point with that is know your own limits. So yes, I'm going for HIIT stuff, and for me, that's a good space for me to be in. But if you're craving, chill out, like sometimes I can't listen to anything. I can't listen to audiobooks. I can't listen to music. I just need to go sit by the water. Sometimes I will literally just watch the ducks by the water, right? Like you just have to listen.
I had to learn what your body to listen
needs
and actually tell when it's lying.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, I just want to eat this like pack of crisps. Do you remember when I just ate? My body was a liar. It was not a Wonderland. It was a liar. John Mayer. I went through a phase of eating a pack of crisps a day, like a massive packet of, you call them chips.
Okay.
And you're wrong, but that's okay because they're crisps for the most part. I have had chips, but so I would have a pack of crisps a day, and I just got into this mode. And then one day I was like, oh, I really fit. But I've just got this craving. I've just got to, and then I was like, hey, body, you're lying. I see you. You're lying. And so I would, again, do that disruption thing, the neural pathway thing, where it's like, no, and especially because I have a very addictive personality. And I know that. I have read In the Realm of the Hungry Ghosts, and I highly recommend that too. It's a big book, but it's worth it. And so I think that it's worth, again, going back to that space, the oven that you put this cake in, knowing that you have enough space that you can sometimes have nothing in there so that you can listen to it doesn't really make sense when you're like, what does the oven need?
So what does that even mean? Because I let's just say, we'll put it this way. For me, I've always been very intuitive with my body. That I was really lucky that I grew up that way. I know when my body's messing with me. Like, it's not to say I don't get cravings for bad stuff, and it's not to say I don't give in to cravings for terrible stuff. But I always know. Like, I know my body doesn't need it. I know it's not a real craving. I know it's not the nutrition it needs. But sometimes I'm like, you know what? My brain is going to calm down and it's going to let me focus on this thing. So I'm just going to treat it. And other times I'm like, nah, we're going too far here. But I have always been really intuitive. So for you, what does it mean for someone who maybe wasn't as intuitive to all of a sudden listen? And what does it mean? Like, you're talking about listening to your heart, but I'm just trying to think of tactical things that other people who maybe feel the same can actually, what can they do to start linking
I wish I knew the answer
body
to this question, because we'd be so rich. Bombshells would just be like on the global, like, top, Forbes, what is it?
Set.
I don't even know the names of these top 500, Fortune 500 companies. I wish I knew the answer. This is why I keep going back to that space thing, because I think our society, and I've had this conversation a lot in entertainment and in careers, but our society is built to give you a formula. And a lot of these, these different professional development, personal developments, all of these things are really useful, but they are only frameworks. And if you're not careful, what happens, especially if you have an addictive personality, and I will use Tony Robbins as an example, I really enjoyed that course, but it's not the only thing that I do, and it's not the thing that I will continue to do, because I don't think that's healthy. I think, to answer your question, what you have to do is find your own ingredients and take the little steps. It's tiny steps. So if you are the type of person that's like, my weight is a really big issue, instead of saying, it's the weight, I'm going to do Noom, I'm going to do Weight Watchers, I'm going to do these things, you actually have to take a much bigger step back and say, okay, how am I feeling about this? What are the elements of my existence that I'm paying attention to, not paying attention to? What's happening in my life? And you basically put all these ingredients out on the table in front of you. And that's so different to everyone. So it's so hard to, and that's why people have career coaches and life coaches,
But I guess that's what I'm saying is, like, how do you listen? How do you figure out so for me, I'll just say, for example, when I'm tuning into myself, I'm looking for multiple things afterwards. So let's just say I did a HIIT workout, and afterwards I'm aggressive biking home, because I was living in Amsterdam. So we're biking and everyone's annoying me. And all of a sudden I realize, like, I have a furrow in my brow, and I'm like, why am I feeling strain in my forehead? Why is it hard for me to catch my breath? Why is my breath feeling up here and I can't take a full breath? I look for all of these things. Why am I grumpy right now? Like, that tells me, it's a barometer that tells me I'm doing the wrong things.
Sorry.
If I'm meditating, and I'm starting to feel antsy and jittery, and I'm like, okay, I'm buzzing, and this is not calming me. This is actually making me feel aggravated. But
you also,
meditation
just
wasn't
to
the
be
right
clear,
thing.
and I think you just hit the nail on the head there, and light bulb moment for me then is, one thing that Larry always says to me, my career coach, is that I'm very good at getting curious. And you and I say this all the time to each other. We are obsessed with being curious about things, and not from a judgmental space.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big difference, because when you say like, oh, meditation's not for me, I would challenge you back, because you just said, I'm going to start meditating. Oh, right.
No.
Right.
I mean,
so,
in that moment, that like, if I'm sitting there, no, I meditate. I've meditated for years. I think I started when I was 20, but, no, if in that moment that I'm sitting there, cause I said, well, this person said meditating is good, and I'm going to sit here, that may not have been the right thing. Now, for me, again, I've done meditation for years, so this isn't me learning the practice. I think there's always a upward slope when you're learning something, and it's always going to be difficult. But once you know how to do it and you're in that rhythm, if you're feeling like this is making me not feel
that's the moment to ask why. That's the moment to get curious and be like, I'm not feeling good. I'm going to walk away from this, and I'm going to think about it again, or feel it out again when I'm not feeling in this same way, because that's weird. And also, when you're next to these things, you know, when I'm next to that pack of crisps and I'm like, I really want this, and I really, you know, sometimes you just have to do what you have to do to walk away from it, and then come back when you're not in your body's in like close proximity crisis mode with whatever that thing or person or relationship or anything is. And those daily practices, again, like just going back to that, I think it galvanizes some of your foundational ways of being, so that you can take that step away and say, and actually be not your own thoughts. Because otherwise you get swept in. And how many times do we hear this from people? It's just the way I am. That's just how I am. That's just what I do. And I find that these daily practices allow me to go back to, this is who I've said I wanted to be, because I know that these elements prove to me that I believe in the things I believe in. A lot of people are like, how do you do all the stuff you do in a day? And I'm like, well, I do a tiny bit of it every morning. So I say to the universe, I am ready to speak for 6 hours. I am ready to do an audiobook for 6 hours straight, because I do my vocal warm-ups every single day. I put out there that I'm ready for my best version of myself. And those... But
well, and you're a professional, so
you'd say
you're
that
taking the steps that you need to do as a lot of
professionals don't warm their voices up every day. A lot of professionals don't go take tons of drugs before they go and do a show. They're addicts that, you know, and tons of them are not. But, you know, you and I are very much athletes about our existence, and we want to optimize our experience in a way that's nourishing, rather than in order to purge something else. Like, you've met those people. We've worked in music. We see all those people that can only do music, but they can't just do music. They've just decided. And so whatever it takes for them to get up on that stage and sing those songs, they will do. Right?
Right. I see.
So it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. But then, I mean, for those people, they have to be ready to put themselves first, because I think there's so much going on there. There's deeper rooted things, but I think if you're in your daily life and you're saying, how can I show up better every day, and you're already curious about how to shift your day and how to live better and to feel better and all of that, then daily practices can be really strong, whether you go about it from a really strict regimen or whether you go more intuitive. I think either way, you're going to feel benefits. And I think sometimes it's better to start more strict, learn from that, and then you can go intuitive, because then you know daily, if I do this, this is how I feel. That works for me.
I think that's a really great
whatever, you can figure it out.
Actually, yeah, that's exactly what I did. And finding those things that matter. Like, I post on my Instagram stories like pretty much every day that I do the morning mindset. And the last...
Yeah, you do. I wanted to bring that up.
Before, like, that's my accountability. But sometimes, like today, I did, over the past few weeks, I've been like, oh, I don't actually have time for this. Learning how to forgive yourself for not doing those things as well is really important, but also doing so in such a way where, again, you're coming at it from curiosity and kindness and a lack of judgment, but then you turn around and say, what needs to shift so that I can get this done? And for me, last week, what happened was I was like, oh, I've been guilting myself and making myself feel bad because I didn't have time because I was sleeping more. I didn't have time to do my routine. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to commit to doing what I can with the time I can. So this morning I woke up and I was like, oh, I don't have time. And I could have just set the alarm. I moved my alarm back knowing that I needed that sleep. And then I said, I'm going to do the 3 things. I'm going to do 3. And if I don't get to the rest, that is okay. But if it happens repeatedly, then I say, okay, there's a problem here. And I either need to shift that routine so that I can achieve it, so that I'm feeling that sense of achievement, or I need to shift something else in my life. And right now, as you know, it's me learning how to say no. So I'm learning how to say no to a whole bunch of things, which is great. So on that, which is great. It's very uncomfortable for me, but it's working. Well, on that note, I think we had a good check-in for habits and routines and practices. Yes. And I'm glad that you're going back to SAS, you call it, to do your 5:45 a.m. workouts. Welcome to the 5 a.m. club. Great. Well, good luck with you all out there baking your daily practice cakes. May you live in harmony with your newfound practice cakes, and please send us messages with what you've created, and send us some tips, some things that you did that you might do for like 3 to 5 to 10 minutes or whatever a day. And I don't know, they might be good for us to add into ours.
Yeah.
We'll have a 3-hour daily practice by the end of this.
Love that. Well, bye, babies. Have a lovely Tuesday.
Thanks for listening, bombshells. In order to continue to elevate, subscribe and don't forget to click that little bell so you can get notified every time we have a new badass brunch. Until next time, stay focused, fierce, and fabulous.